Hello, everybody. This is Gino Johnson, CEO of Champions for Veterans. Thank you so much for listening to the Convos of Heroes podcast. I am super excited for today's guest, and Jason Blevins, and he has quite a story to tell, and he's doing some really amazing things. So really excited to hear from him. But of course, before we bring on our guest for today, I want to say hey to my dad. Hey, Dad, how you doing?
Man, thank you, son. I'm jacked up. Got a great American hero, Jason, here. Can't wait to hear his story.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me go ahead and tell you all a little bit about Jason. He has quite an expansive resume in his bio here, so I'll go ahead and read that for you to give you a little bit of background before we hear directly from Jason. So Jason Blevins is a retired colonel, is a proven combat-tested leader who served for 25 years in the U.S. Army as a Combined Arms Aviation Officer, leading soldiers, complex military operations, and programmatic initiatives within the Army. Born in Wurzburg, Germany, Jason is the son of a Vietnam-era Army officer and UH-1 pilot. He graduated from Victoria High School in Victoria, Texas in 1990, later graduating as a distinguished military graduate of Texas A&M University in 1994. Jason's extensive Army career spanned tactical and operational level positions and combat-proven leadership, from platoon leader to brigade task force commander in some of the Army's most elite divisional units, including the 82nd Airborne Division, the 2nd Infantry Division, the 101st Airborne Division, and the 1st Cavalry Division. Jason's professional military education includes distinguished graduate of both the Air Command and Staff College at Maxwell Air Force Base in 2008 and the U.S. Army War College in 2016. Jason deployed to Iraq in 2003 to 2004, Afghanistan in 2006, 2009, 2013, and 2017, where he led an advice and assist task force in Jalalabad. Jason's command experience includes Alpha Company, 9th Battalion, 101st Aviation Regiment, 2nd Battalion, 227th Aviation Regiment, and Task Force Leopard Advise and Assist Brigade, 1st Cavalry Division. Jason served as director of the U.S. Army Aviation Operational Test Directorate in his final Army assignment. Upon his retirement from the U.S. Army in June 2019, Jason initially worked for Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, and currently Del Mar Aerospace Corporation. Most recently, Jason opened an in-home senior care business, Seniors Helping Seniors, of Northwest Houston. Jason holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Texas A&M University and master's degrees in Military Operational Arts and Sciences and Master of Strategic Studies. His military education includes the Aviation Officer, Basic and Advanced courses, the UH-60 Instructor Pilot course, the Combined Armed Services Staff School, the U.S. Air Force Command and General Staff College, and the U.S. Army War College. Jason is a master-rated Army aviator with over 2,700 flight hours, including over 1,000 hours in combat. His awards and decorations include Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star Medal, 3rd Oak Leaf Cluster, the Air Medal for Valor, the Air Medal with numeral 7, the Meritorious Service Medal, 6th Oak Leaf Cluster, the Army Commendation Medal, 2nd Oak Leaf Cluster, and the Combat Action Master Army Aviator, Senior Parachutist, and Air Force Air Assault badges. Jason lives in Tomball, Texas with his wife, Camille. They have 4 children, Madison, 22, Jake, 21, Luke, 18, and Danny, 9. Jason, sir, good to have you on with us.
Hey, great hearing from you. It's hard to listen to somebody read your bio. I gotta admit.
I bet. I can imagine. Well, yeah, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jason. I'll let you guys go ahead and take it.
Well, I can kind of give you the Paul Harvey rest of the story for you older folks like Ranger Johnson that know who Paul Harvey is. So yeah, I'm the son of an Army aviator. He did 3 tours in Vietnam, and my dad died of Agent Orange cancer when I was 3 years old. So I grew up with a stepdad that raised me. And so met my wife Camille in college in 1990, and she ended up marrying a friend of mine. His name was Matthew Worrell. Matthew was killed in Iraq in 2006, and then Camille had 2 boys and her daughter. And about 9 years after Matt's death, I was actually stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And I was in Houston at a friend of mine's home who was having a crawfish boil in April. And it just so happened Camille came over to the same event, and we started talking and sort of hit it off and reconnected after many, many years, you know, many years since college and almost 10 years since Matthew was killed. And we just found all this common ground. And she was asking me lots of questions about, you know, hey, how did I manage growing up with this, you know, mysterious father figure, this Vietnam pilot. He was very highly decorated. A lot of parallels with her boys and me, with my dad and their dad Matthew. And so as a result, we sort of just kept talking, and it just felt like the right thing to do. And so we've been married now 5.5 years. Will be 6 years this year. So it's been very fortunate bringing these two families together and just learning how I can apply what I learned growing up with this loss of my parent due to the military, and being able to help mentor and raise Matthew's boys as my own. It's been a real privilege.
Oh, wow. That's incredible, man. I mean, what a story. I mean, I'm sitting here right now going back, just thinking about that whole thing and how it came together. And I know you talked about your dad, you know, passing away. Is that what led you to want to be a pilot? I mean, let's talk about your early in life. You knew your dad had passed away early. You were raised by a stepdad, Wurzburg, Germany. I was actually stationed in Berlin, Germany, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And been to a lot of those spots over there. But man, what was your mindset? Because nothing automatically says just because your dad was a pilot, you didn't want to join the military or become a pilot. So get into that kind of mindset as a young boy growing up.
So you kind of have to rewind back to my my early college days at Texas A&M. I was in the Corps Cadets there in the Fighting Texas Aggie band, and in your first 2 years that you're in the Corps there, you have to be affiliated with an ROTC group. You have the option your junior and senior year to be what they call a drill and ceremony cadet, which means basically you're part of the fraternity, but you're not going to commission in the military when you graduate.
Okay.
Well, the beginning of my sophomore year, I was a Marine Corps cadet, and my outfit advisor came in and he says, "Jason, how would you like to go to airborne school?" And I was like, "You know, sir, that sounds pretty fun." And he was an Army major, and he said, "All right, well, sign here." And I basically signed some paperwork, transferred over to Army RTC, and next thing you know, I was a cadet with airborne wings. So that sort of kick-started me getting motivated to be an Army officer. You know, I always had in the back of my mind, hey, my dad was this pilot. I didn't know much about it because he wasn't alive to talk to me about it. And and it just wasn't, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation. So I continued down my academic path, and to be honest with you, I was really kind of pursuing a medical degree, which hence the psychology, right? And as I continued to train in ROTC and I continued to have success there, I went to the ROTC advanced camp in Fort Lewis and excelled, and I did really well there. And I kind of say, hey, you know, maybe I've got a skill here. Maybe I've got a talent that I need to at least harness for a little while.
Right.
So I actually was considering going into the infantry, and when I saw how my score was, and I was pretty high on the order of merit list for the cadets and stuff, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go get a flight physical, and I'm going to try to get an aviation slot. Back then, if you wanted aviation, it had to be the first one on your list.
Wow.
And you basically filled out a list of like the top 10 branches you wanted, and the only way you're getting aviation if it was number one. So I figured I might as well give it a shot. My dad did it, I'm going to do it. And sure enough, I got this aviation slot. And like a lot of people, I thought, yeah, back then it was a 6-year commitment. I'll do my 6 years, and then, you know, I'll transition out, maybe study for the MCAT and try to get into a medical school when I get done, whatever. yeah, 25 years later, that didn't happen. And one of the impacts of that was 9/11.
Yeah.
Right about the time that I was at my 6-year mark, I had come back home from Korea, and as Ranger Johnson can tell you, every time you move, you owe the Army another year, right? And so I was actually in that. I'd finished my 6-year commitment for aviation, but I owed them one more year due to the PCS out of Korea. That's when 9/11 hit. And just like any good patriot, you can't take the uniform off after an event like that. It was time for me to go serve. And the next thing you know, the deployment started, the leadership opportunities were coming, getting to command a company in combat in Iraq. And just as the opportunities kept coming, I kept accepting them. And I don't regret one bit of it. I loved being in the Army. I loved being with the people, operating those amazing machines, those helicopters. It was just a privilege across the board.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm listening to you, and I retired in 2000 for 20 years. So when 9/11 hit, I was a college student, and I'll never forget that day. I'm getting ready to go to class, watching the planes fly into the World Trade Center. And that whole day, I was actually at Fort Bragg. I just retired. I was at Fort Bragg going to school. And people come up to me and go, "Aren't you glad you're retired?" Now, of course, how do you tell civilians in a nice way, everybody I know is going over to fight? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And you just got to kind of not say anything and just kind of move on. But it was extremely difficult for me. So you get in combat, you're there with your troops, you're doing your thing, you're going up. Now, I know you said Colonel, this Wurzburg Colonel, retired, Wurzburg Colonel?
Yeah, 06, yeah.
06. Talk about, man, because you lived a high-speed life, man. I've jumped out of plenty of helicopters and, Chinooks and Blackhawks and all kind of stuff in between, and Hueys and everything else. How do you go from 150 miles an hour and to retirement? Because this is a question, because what I tell people all the time is, I did 20 years in the Army, but I've been retired 22 years, Colonel, and I don't believe I'm out yet. Because I still get up in the morning. I'm still driven. I'm still, I got a schedule right in front of me now. My son got me doing this. How do you even operate in the civilian world? Because what you did was so high speed to me, and I'm going somewhere with this question. My issue was being a Green Beret and a Ranger and all this stuff, and then now I'm a civilian. How do I replace all that get up, go? What do I do to give me that or something similar to that? Mm-hmm. That's a question for you.
You're exactly right. It's a very hard transition, going from this extremely disciplined, very regimented lifestyle. You've got a very clean hierarchy and chain of command. Your soldiers want to accomplish their mission. They're sitting there saying, feed me your direction, feed me your commander's intent, and then allow me to go execute. I had to make the transition. That's not always the way it works in the civilian world. I am surrounded in my defense contractor job, by former military people. So they have a very similar mindset, and that makes it easier. Even when I worked initially at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, there was several former military folks there. But when you start dealing with outside agencies, with companies whose focus is producing a aircraft or providing a service and things like that, there's much more of the decision by committee mentality, which was one of the harder things to accept. The deal, Ranger. You're sitting there, you're like, hey, somebody make a decision, and then let's go execute on that decision. And it's just not the way it works. It's a much more gentle hand. Yeah, there's a lot more need to get commitment and buy-in, and you've got to really be sensitive to other people's the emotional intelligence aspect is very important, which was challenging because if you do my reverse timeline, I had 1 year of working in the civilian workforce until COVID hit, and then all of a sudden we're dealing with agencies and companies and people virtually. So trying to read the atmosphere of the room and understand if people are in agreement with you or comprehending and things like that, it became difficult. So it was an art to learn how to be a virtual leader in a civilian type environment. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah. You know, I'm just interested. I want you to kind of talk about, you know, such a fascinating career, man. I mean, I'm loving this, Jason, talking to you. Talk about some leadership lessons. Now, look, man, you at Texas A&M, you know, I'm from Texas originally, and very familiar with A&M, and you know, had family members go over there and things like that. And but man, from the leadership you learned there, military brat, basically, you know, although your dad had passed away and growing up in that. Talk about some guys that maybe not, that gave you some leadership stuff that helped you in your life. Because this is what I tell people. No one makes it full-bird colonel by yourself. You didn't just make it because, you know, Jason was so smart and you had it all together. Give if you want to name names, you can. You don't have to, but talk about some of the guys, man, and maybe taught you a few lessons along the way, or young ladies or ladies.
You know that's a great point. So the number one lesson, the secret sauce in the military for me was taking care of people, and that's both directions. It is listening to your superiors, and sometimes very professionally telling them, sir, ma'am, we might want to relook at this from a different perspective, because you want to keep your boss out of trouble, you know, kind of deal. So as a brand new lieutenant in the 82nd Airborne Division, I walked into the door and met my first sergeant, and this guy was a double barrel 10 gauge shotgun. He took no prisoners. He had zero tolerance for games, and he absolutely would not leave any emotion off the table. So needless to say, he was the classic, you know, 82nd Airborne Division first sergeant.
Yeah.
And I learned real quick with him, first of all, the power of the NCO structure. In a lot of ways, it was from First Sergeant DeLuna. We called him the lunatic because he was a pistol. And I learned real quick, as the company XO, provide resources and enable him to do his job. And we will not only accomplish our mission, we will do it in the most professional, perfect manner ever. You know, we would go to the field. I just needed to give him shovels, and we were going to have the best fighting positions you've ever seen. Every sandbag was going to be full. The chow was going to be delicious. You know, it was just like everything was done well as long as I gave him the resources to do it. My company commander was phenomenal. I actually got to serve under two company commanders in that company, and both of them were really good about giving clear direction and guidance, and then managing upward and allowing his subordinate leaders to execute downward. And you know, so lots of good lessons were there. My first flight company commander was a female. So as a cadet growing up, I didn't, you know, you still had that gung-ho masculine mentalities kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden I have retired Colonel Carrie Wagon. She was Captain Wagon back then, leading and mentoring me. And there was from her in particular, this very calm, super professional kind of approach to things. She was very meticulous. I will tell you one thing, I never failed to know where all of my sensitive items, weapons, ComSec, and pieces of equipment were, because Captain Wagon may come up at any moment and require me to show and demonstrate her those kind of things. So she really instilled in us this academic leadership mentality. You know, things have a process. You need to be cool and collected. You need to be very proficient at your trade. So that's where I really truly learned the extreme importance of listening to your subordinates. So you know, in the aviation world, you have all the warrant officers that you lead, except you have this balance, because that warrant officer corps has more flight experience, and they're better at employing that aircraft into the various mission profiles than you are, especially when you're junior like that. So luckily I was paired with a guy named Mark Hubacher. He was a W4, salt of the earth Army aviator, and he taught me really the art of employing that aircraft. So there is an art and science to leadership. There's an art and science to flying. I could recite the procedures, the emergency procedures, the limitations, all this kind of stuff all day long. But to finesse this multi-million-dollar machine to accomplish its mission is an art form. And luckily for quite a while, I was paired up with some superstar warrant officers that really taught me how to paint, if you will.
Yeah. Let me jump in there, man, because, you know, I was in the 1st and 75th Ranger Battalion. We used Task Force 160 quite a bit out of Fort Campbell. And I tell you right now, I mean, flying with those dudes, nothing but respect.
Yeah.
Seeing what they do with an aircraft. I mean, you know, we literally would fly into somewhere, dark at night, and then I would get up the next day and say, look at all the telephone wires and say, how did they get that thing in here? Yeah. You know, I would get up the next day, like, you know, we just come out the back of the helicopter and come off the sides of whatever we flew in on and be like, these dudes are incredible. So listening to you as a master pilot talk about it, it's phenomenal, all the training that goes into being able to do that, because a lot of people don't realize how inherently dangerous flying on a chopper is, and with troops and around each other, and the blades and the wingspan. And you know, let me say this, I want you to jump right in. We're in part of a major exercise at Fort Bragg, with 53 helicopters, the Air Force 53s. And one came in and flared too hard, and things spun, and we lost a couple of guys that day. I'm talking about one of the it's a training mission we were on.
Yeah.
And my unit was not there doing the CAPEX that day, but there was another unit doing the CAPEX, but I knew of guys that were on that chopper. And so when we talk about the dangerous nature, I always like to tell people all the time, when I meet a vet, I don't care where he went to combat, and I say, thank you for your service, because I can name 20 people that died in training during my military career. Like I know them. Talk about just the safety aspect, man, of every time getting on that bird. Talk about some of that stuff.
So in the aviation business, it's not good enough to just check blocks and have fundamentals down. It's so critically important that you get down into the weeds and into the details, and your good units will absolutely drill down deep because of the inherent risks, the basically, you know, hyper narrow safety margin you have in these types of events. So, you know, you're performing a 20 or 30 ship air assault at night with low illumination into tight landing zones. You have no room for error anymore. And unfortunately, you know, sometimes we either don't drill down deep enough into the details, or somebody makes what seems like the tiniest, smallest error, and it can have a pretty catastrophic outcome to it. You know, that community is extremely safety driven.
Yeah.
We do lots of training. We're very meticulous about which pilots we pair with other pilots and even crew chiefs in the back. And, you know, we need a lot of good crew activity and interaction. So, you know, when you're the leader, if you know that there's sort of a personality issue or a conflict between a couple of folks, you're not going to put them in the aircraft together, you know, because you just can't afford that risk. We spend a lot of time truly deep diving into the details to make sure that every stone is unturned and every idea is thought of. You know, some of the best rehearsals and preparatory activities you're going to find is in an aviation unit.
Yeah. I see my son got a question. I'm gonna let him.
And, you know, I mean, Jason, I appreciate you sharing that information about what you guys went through. And just that what stood out to me with what you were sharing is just that intense attention to detail required to do what you did. Would you mind telling us a little bit about just how has that impacted you just in the civilian world, just all the things that you learned, especially attention to detail and having such high risk situations that you're responsible for? How has that impacted you in your career now?
Yeah, so I think once you learn those kinds of lessons, you can't unlearn them. So you carry them with you. And when whether I'm working on a contract or running a meeting or working inside of my business, you know, it's very critical to get everything perfectly right. You know, I have tuned and retuned my seniors business operations manual and employee handbook, you know, and it drives me nuts when I'm working on my QuickBooks and I can't get it down to the exact penny. Like I have probably spent way too many hours sitting here trying to figure out where that one penny was entered in error. And so that's a good problem to have. I think attention to detail is important. We're all good at the big major muscle movements, where I think you start cresting the bell-shaped curve from acceptable into superior quality and performance is when you do really get into the details. And I got to make one correction, Gino, from something you said earlier. So you family members serve too. So you do know what it means to serve. I will guarantee you have sacrificed, you've had to move away from friends, you've had to cut out of schools that you didn't want to leave yet. Those things happen to family members, you know, wives that can't keep jobs for extended periods of time. The laundry list goes on and on. So I want to just commend you and all those family members out there for the sacrifices that you've made, because they're incredible.
Wow. Incredible. It's a great conversation. I mean, it's amazing because just listening to your background, you know, we've had quite a few guys we've talked to, went to different academies, from Air Force Academy, you know, of course, West Point, Naval Academy. I think you're our first Texas A&M guy on the call. So that's pretty good, man. So look, let's talk about it, because I know you talk about being this transition from a 25-year guy and colonel to the civilian. And I love to tell a story. I remember my retirement. My grandmother came up, different family members came to Fort Bragg. I had it there at a theater, the Special Forces Warfare Theater right there on Ardennes, but you know where it's at. And everybody came, and it was great, and my uncles, and I had probably about 20 or 30 family members, and had my uniform on, and it was fun. It was great, and everybody was so proud. And that was a Friday. Then all of a sudden, after everybody left that weekend, and I got up that Monday, and I would tell you, Colonel, I didn't know who I was without the uniform. I got up that Monday and didn't know what to do. And I said to myself, I wouldn't be that guy, because I watched buddies retire, friends retire. I heard the stories, and I'm like, oh no, you guys are doing it wrong. I'm going to be prepared. I'm ready to go. And what I didn't realize is a funny thing happened. I was in the military for 20 years, but the military got in me.
Absolutely.
And you know, and really, my wife will tell you, even since we've been doing this business here, talking to veterans like yourself, man, talking to American heroes, I think I'm a better person now because I get a chance to talk to people, you know, kind of like me, and I say stuff you won't think I'm crazy, and I won't think you're crazy. Talk about the mentality, brother. Just
Yeah.
get back into jumping from a colonel in charge of all this great stuff and all this millions of dollars worth of equipment. And a lot of times, I really don't think civilians realize the what we put on young soldiers. You know, you got a young crew chief, you got a young millions of dollars worth of equipment, and they have a task to do stuff. And here you are as a full-bird colonel, and you got all these people under you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that shift, man, of trying to get civilians to even understand like what you know, how you can help them.
Yeah. So it is maybe impossible not to have part of your identity militarized. You can't get rid of the Ranger Johnson. He's always going to be there because, you know, 2 decades of your life. So I know that's always there. I try to be conscious of it. Sometimes if I get too knife-handed and specific, you know, my family will say, "Hey, easy there, Colonel." You know, they literally snap me back to reality.
Yeah.
It's something also, but dealing in the civilian world, when I'm working with coworkers and doing these things, I really am very conscious to not be that way, because people don't want to take orders. They want to be a team member and part of the solution. I was fortunate in the last few years of my career, both when I was deployed in Jalalabad as a task force commander and in my director job at Operational Test Command, I had a pretty significant, if not even half of my workforce were civilians. And so I was able to start growing that ability before I took the uniform off. So it made it easier transition. For soldiers, let's say you're a first sergeant, sergeant first class, some sergeants major, not all of them, where you go from a pure military unit, boom, and you're into this civilian world. It's a hard transition. And I feel like, you know, maybe in those transitional classes, there just needs to be some formalized, hey, we're going to give you 2 hours we're going to give you a whole morning of instruction on how to take all that leadership potential and lessons and discipline. How do I use that as a set of tools in my toolbox to integrate into and lead in the civilian world? You know, you take that, even that E4 did their 4 or 5 years of military service, that they were in my business. These guys and gals were fixing multi-million-dollar aircraft. They were responsible. Just imagine if you're a flight crew, knowing that this 21 or 22-year-old was solely responsible for removing an entire engine out of an aircraft, performing repairs, reinstalling it, making sure it was absolutely perfect. Wow. Having it inspected by a third party, and then you crank those engines and go fly. I mean, you're putting a lot of faith in the abilities of that young man or woman to make sure they did everything exactly right. And it's a trust-based kind of relationship. You can take the amount of trust and skills and confidence you have in each other and in your team, and apply that in the civilian world and be very successful with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was just as simple for me as say an aviation battalion commander, of walking up and seeing this engine on a stand or hanging from a crane and saying, "Hey, Specialist Jones, I'm proud of you. You're doing great work. Like, keep it up." That pat on the back and that little simple praise is the difference that would help make sure it was the best quality and that everything was absolutely perfect. And I could therefore, I could therefore sign that next risk assessment worksheet in good faith and knowing that everything was done right. And it's just one of them. You know, we could go on and on with examples that aren't related to aviation. Maybe it's cooks, making sure your soldiers are fed when you're out in the field, or making sure the mail was sent, that your accountability reports are correct. You know, you could just go on and on.
So it sounds like you got it, man. Babies cry for it, men die for it. Recognition.
Absolutely.
Just, you know, inspiring people to be the best that they can be. Now talk about what do you do? You know, you talked about your business name. I want you to kind of get into your service, what you're providing now since you retired, because, you know, this is Convos with Heroes. And, I love for people to see that American hero like yourself served his country for, you know, 25 years. And I count the Texas A&M time. I mean, anybody went to the military academy, I take my head off to you guys. Going through 4 years of getting debt for 4 years, I put that on there too. I'm just gonna say 30 years, you know, and now you're doing this here. So talk about what you do. What's your business? Give us an idea of what the mission is.
Yeah, so after the first couple of years out of retirement, I realized, you know, I want to be the boss. I want something that I can take and provide direction and leadership and grow. And so my wife and I, we talked about it, prayed about it, did some research, and I decided going into a franchise was the way to go. I've never worked in the business field per se, so starting something up from scratch didn't seem like a smart move for me. So we researched franchises, and we kind of narrowed it down to, we knew we wanted something that was service oriented. I wasn't going to produce a product, and I didn't want to serve food. So I wanted to do a service. I wanted to be able to run it from a home office, at least initially. And so when you started boiling all these down, this in-home senior care business sort of rose to the top with a few others. Now, what really made the difference is our 9-year-old daughter has a disease called Leigh syndrome. It's Leigh syndrome, and it's a mitochondrial disease. She has a fairly severe case, so she's immobile. She eats through a G tube. She's nonverbal. It requires a significant amount of care, and her caregivers are her parents, and that's us. And so we knew we could care for people. And so again, the pieces of the puzzle started just kind of fitting together, and it came out that, hey, let's buy into this in-home senior care franchise, and it's called Seniors Helping Seniors. So what we do is we employ people that are 50 plus years old to provide in-home senior care for people that are 65 plus that just need assistance for the entire spectrum of reasons that a senior citizen might need assistance. Maybe they just flat out are lonely and need some companionship. They may have some early onset dementia and just need somebody there to make sure that they're safe. They may be a senior couple who has spent 40 or 50 years in their home, and they're starting to have some more needs because of their physical ailments or whatever. And by us coming in and providing just a few hours of assistance a week, we can allow them to stay independent and safe in their home. They don't have to move out. They don't have to go to assisted living and all the mental and financial stress associated with things like that. So it's been a real reward, and where do veterans come in? So being a veteran-owned small business, I have a tender spot in my heart for veterans, as I'm sure you do, actually both of y'all. And so I did apply, and we are a Veterans Administration Community Care Network provider. So if you're looking for in-home care services and you research our zip code, our business, Seniors Helping Seniors, is going to pop up, and we can help those veterans that need assistance in their home. I've talked to several and informed them of the types of services the VA can help pay for and cover for you. Community care is a doctor prescribed service. They say, yes, you need some assistance in your home, and I'm going to basically prescribe it to you. and then they can contact us or other similar agencies that are on the preferred network provider list, and they can come in and give those services that the VA covers. Another form is the aid and attendance benefit. That's a paid benefit that goes to the veteran for them to cover care services, whether it's, you know, family members that are basically having to reduce their job hours and time in order to care for that veteran, or they want to bring an outside agency and use that aid and attendance money. So there's just benefits out there. I am a child of a veteran who deceased, and I was taken care of very nicely by the VA through Agent Orange benefits and funding that helped pay for college and things like that. I used my GI Bill benefits and paid for basically all of my daughter's education. She graduated from University of North Carolina last year.
Wow. Wow.
And I've watched as the VA, among other organizations, Special Operations Warrior Foundation, and a few other agencies have really contributed and helped my stepsons as they're both in college right now. One's a junior at Texas A&M, one's a freshman at Texas State. So I've seen and witnessed and personally benefited from the benefits that the VA does. And it's great to live in a nation where we have an agency like the VA to help take care of those that were willing to pay the ultimate price.
Wow, you know, you've given us so much information. I want to go back to the community cares piece and break it down. Of course, I'm, 100% vet, so I understand community care very well. As a matter of fact, I just went on appointment last week and got these brand new hearing aids, community cares. They're my third set I've gotten from the VA since I retired, and they are the best hearing aids I've ever had. And they sent me to a civilian. And for the people that don't know, I'm not gonna assume people know that watch a video. The VA has a system now. If you go to see your VA doctor, if you're in the VA system, and the VA can't see you within a certain period of time. And look, I'm going to say 30 days, but it may not be exactly 30. So if you watch the video, don't ding me. But I'm just giving an example. Say 30 days, if the VA can't see you, they will give you an opportunity to get those services within a civilian capacity in your area. And I chose civilian and got my hearing aids. And it worked well. I went to see a civilian doctor. They got me in there one day. She said, I need new hearing aids. By that Friday, I had my new hearing aids. It was impressive. Now, let's talk about your particular business. Let's say I'm living in the Houston area, all right? I'm 100% totally disabled. I need some help at my house, whether it's somebody coming in there cooking a meal, do whatever. I go to my VA doctor and I say, look, doc, seniors helping seniors. I looked them up online. I know they can help me. I got to get somebody to come in at least 2 days a week, cook a meal. Talk about that. Is that what we're talking about? Break that down so I understand it.
Okay, so there's some activities you do every day. They're called the activities of daily living. So if you rewind back to when you were an infant and a toddler, your parents taught you how to eat. They taught you how to get dressed. They taught you how to take a bath, even though, little boys go splash their hand in the bathtub and pretend like they bathe, right? But they taught you how to do it right. So they taught you personal hygiene and all these activities of daily living. Some seniors, as they get older, they lose the ability to properly perform their activities of daily living. It may be a mobility issue. Maybe you've had hip replacement surgeries or knees replaced, and you just can't move around like you used to. You might just simply not be able to cook safely. You may have start having some memory loss. Things that could reduce your ability to safely conduct your activities of daily living. Right. If your doctor acknowledges that and prescribes, yes, you need assistance with at least one activity of daily living, they can then refer you to the community care network through the VA system. Community care are services like what Seniors Helping Seniors offer. We offer those non-medical services to come in and assist you with companion care, meal preparation, some light housekeeping. We can drive you to your appointments and your social events, and go to the grocery store with you. I know that you two have both at some point in time helped an old lady across the street. You've helped an elder person pull that box or that can off the shelf in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You've helped them pick up a heavy object. I know y'all done that.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And we're not an Uber. We're not going to come sit outside, let you hop in and drop you off. We're going to come inside, pick you up, help you get in the car, walk you to the grocery store, help you do your shopping, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very active service. If you have higher levels of needs, we call that personal assistant services. That's we're licensed by the state of Texas to provide those services. You could think of that as more hands-on. That might be where I actually have to physically help you transfer out of a wheelchair into a vehicle, or out of bed and onto the toilet. You may need a little stability getting in and out of the shower. There's those things where for whatever reason, you just don't have the facilities anymore to actually handle those type of critical skills by yourself, or at least not safely by yourself.
Yeah. And I know a little bit about that because my wife's a retired occupational therapist, and to transfer skills out of wheelchairs, and she's taught all that, and she did that for 35 years. Wow. in various different places. So, man, it's fascinating that you got a business like this. Now, a couple more questions before I turn it over to my son. I mean, can I get up with you? If I'm listening to you right now and you're very professional and you know what you're doing and you got all that, man, first off, I'm impressed that I say this with all respect, that a flyboy would do something like this. This is pretty good. All right. I'm very, very respectful, Colonel. But look, you got a website, you got a phone number. How can I, if I'm in the Houston area, man, how do I get in touch with a Seniors Helping Seniors?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. The two easiest ones are just to find us online. You can go to seniorshelpingseniors.com, type in your zip code. Mine is 77377, and our business will pop right up. That's one way to do it. But for those that don't live, in Houston, if you're in Florida or Michigan or wherever you are, you can type your zip code in to see where the nearest Seniors Helping Seniors business is near you. Your other way, if you are in my area, if you're in Northwest Houston, you can go to homecaretomball.com, and Home Care Tomball is our main website. We're also on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. I'm steadily building my social presence. One thing about that I've learned here in the last 7 or 8 months since I started this business is the critical importance of your online presence. And I actually just this month am working on some Google ads and investing a little finances into that online marketing campaign. So it's critical for your growth, but I want to get the word out because I know that there are people that need this assistance that may not even know that it exists.
Oh, absolutely.
And with our business model, I think you take a senior citizen that needs assistance, you bring in a person that's also a senior, and it really does provide some additional layer of comfort and confidence that they're going to be well taken care of, because we've eliminated the generational gap. We've put empathy and compassion into the situation because caregiver is also starting to feel the effects of aging and understands, I can see why a person might need to reach out and request this kind of assistance. So it's not just a job for some of those folks.
Oh, absolutely. As the folks used to tell me, keep on living. I can remember as a young, I was listening to one of your stories about how one of your commanders signed for you to go to jump school, and that boom, you were off. I had the same thing happen. One of my mentors, he signed for me to go to drill sergeant school, Sergeant Claude Higgs. And I told him back in the day, I said, well, I was had been in the Army about 2 years. I was in Berlin, Germany, 1982 time frame. And I was over there from 82 to 84. And my first 4 years in, ended up, I'm going to go be a Ranger in a Green Beret. He looked at me and said, "No, you're not." That's his East Tennessee voice. And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "No, you're going to go be a drill sergeant because you're going to learn leadership skills and so on and so forth." So he went and got the paperwork and said, "Sign here." And that's what I did. I became a drill sergeant, graduated at the age of 21. But I'm getting to what you're talking about, needing assistance. So as a 21-year-old drill sergeant candidate, I'm running PT, and I got a guy in my class, I still got my picture hanging up here on the wall, that was about 44 years old. The Army made him go to drill sergeant school at 19 years in the Army. And I never forget, he was a black hat, and it's called a jump instructor at Fort Bragg, and he was almost ready to retire. The Army made him be a drill sergeant. At 21, I'm backing up, running 5 miles. Here we go, all the way, every day. And I'm not understanding this 44-year-old man looking at me saying, "Johnson, you're gonna find out one day how I feel." Well, guess what, Colonel? I'll turn 60 this year. And I'm looking at your business and I'm saying, you're absolutely right. As you get older, you can't bend and jump. In your mind, you can. Absolutely. So what you're providing is a reality and a necessity. It's not a if, but when you're gonna need assistance, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you see growing this thing, man? My last question, I said that before, I'm like a preacher. As I finish, he never finishes. Anyway, how do you see growing it before I kick you to my son? What you talking about? Social media presence? What else you got going to help grow your business?
It's just getting my face out there. It's going to those Chamber of Commerce events. It's going to senior events, expos. Anything to let people know there is this business out there where we do offer the assistance. It's not as expensive as assisted living and formalized medical nursing care, and it can bridge that gap, maybe indefinitely, to allow you to be safe and independent. So it's a matter of just getting us out there. There's several agencies like this around. I think Seniors Help Seniors is unique in its business model of actual seniors assisting seniors. And so as that word continues to grow and I continue to hire high quality caregivers, I would love to have some veterans on the team and match those veterans with veterans in need. It would just be a match made in heaven. I've had one opportunity to do that where I matched a 75-year-old Vietnam era UE pilot with a 97-year-old World War II B-24 pilot.
Wow.
So you can imagine, bit of a match made in heaven there. They had a great time together, and the client, the 97-year-old, he actually moved closer to be near his sons, but we really enjoyed having that experience, and it was good to see. It was a good match.
Great. All right. Well, I'm gonna kick it to my son for some final questions, man. I'm loving this. Great.
Thanks, Ranger Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Man, Jason, this has been incredible. I'm definitely honored to have had you on this podcast with us, just because, you're just doing amazing work, helping people. It's always good to have folks on here changing lives. And that's why we have Combos with Heroes, right? Of course, you served and you're an American hero. You're still being a hero to the community. So thank you for that, sir.
Thanks, Gina.
So as usual, we always like to end these interviews with just one final question. And, basically that question is, when your life is over, what do you want people to remember you for? You mind telling us that?
Yeah, that's a deep question. I appreciate you asking it. So honestly, I would like for people to remember me as a person that was willing to serve them. So the military is a service industry at the end of the day. We serve this nation to allow folks to sleep easy at night under our blanket of protection that we provide. I've transitioned that mentality, that service mentality, into my business. Like your dad, I get my retirement check, I get my VA benefits. This isn't a financial motivated job decision for me. This is a passionate, emotional visceral type role where I want to go and serve this community. I've watched my parents as they've aged struggle to get meaningful employment that actually was aligned with their age appropriate employment, if you will. I've been the honeydew guy for my mother-in-law now for the last few years since I've been here and married to my wife. And so as I feel these things and I witness them, it just sheds the light on the fact that I want to be known as a person that was there to help, assist, and provide service to those that need it. And I hope that's how my legacy goes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for serving, and
thank you.
Serving in the military and also serving right now. So I appreciate that.
Well, absolutely. I truly appreciate the opportunity to come on y'all's podcast. This is phenomenal. I would love to learn more about it and start listening in on a regular basis. So I'm interested to hear exactly where I find you and how to sign up, because I think hearing the voices of all these veterans and their stories and knowing how deep and inspirational they can be is just something that all of us veterans could benefit from.
Absolutely, Jason. Yeah, we'll get you the information. Combos with Heroes on all the major podcast platforms. I'll send that to you after the call. So thanks a lot, Jason. And with that, I'll pass over to my dad to close us out.
We've had an incredible time talking to a phenomenal American hero, Jason Blevins. You're talking about a man with over 1,000 hours of combat flight time, fighting in wars all over the world, serving in some of the greatest units, the 82nd Airborne, the 1st Cav. And if you're in the Army, you know those are phenomenal units. So my head goes off to him, but I got to finish the call. I'm telling you to stay in the fight.